When you make an inference, you basically take what you already know in your brain and you put it with the clues that a book gives you, whether the book gives you clues in the words or the illustrations. When you put the clues that are in the book with what you already know and you put it together, sometimes you can understand a book better. You can understand what it is the author or illustrator may be trying to tell you without exactly saying the words. I'm going to read you a book where we're going to make some inferences. And we're going to understand that book better because of what we already know in our brain and what the book gives us as clues to help us understand. This book is called Teammates, written by Peter Golenbock, illustrated by Paul Bacon. Teammates, written by Peter Golenbock, designed and illustrated by Paul Bacon. Now you might notice that we have illustrations and photographs. Now usually we see photographs with non-fiction books. I bet that means that this book is also a non-fiction book. Let's read and find out. Once upon a time in America, when automobiles were black and looked like tanks, and laundry was white and hung on clotheslines to dry, there were two wonderful baseball leagues that no longer exist. They were called the Negro Leagues. You know, automobiles don't really look like this anymore. And most of the laundry I see happens in laundromats with washing machines and dryers. I think I can make an inference that this book is a true story that happened in the past. The types of cars and the clotheslines are clues that the author gives you to help you understand this book happened in the past. The Negro Leagues had extraordinary players, and adoring fans came to see them wherever they played. They were heroes. But players in the Negro Leagues didn't make much money, and their lives on the road were hard. Laws against segregation didn't exist in the 1940s. In many places in this country, black people were not allowed to go to the same schools and churches as white people. They couldn't sit in the front of a bus or a trolley car. They couldn't drink from the same drinking fountains that white people drank from. Back then, many hotels did not rent rooms to black people, so the Negro League players slept in their cars. Many towns had no restaurants that would serve them, so they often had to eat meals that they could buy and carry with them. Life was very different for the players in the major leagues. They were the leagues for white players. Compared to the Negro League players, white players were very well paid. They stayed in good hotels and ate in fine restaurants. Their pictures were put on baseball cards, and the best players became famous all over the world. Many Americans knew that racial prejudice was wrong, but few dared to challenge openly the way things were, and many people were apathetic about racial problems. Some feared that it could be dangerous to object. Vigilante groups like the Ku Klux Klan reacted violently against those who tried to change the way blacks were treated. Branch Rickey. The general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers baseball team was a man by the name of Branch Rickey. He was not afraid of change. He wanted to treat the Dodger fans to the best players he could find, regardless of the color of their skin. He thought segregation was unfair and wanted to give everyone, regardless of race or creed, an opportunity to compete equally on ball fields all across America. To do this, the Dodgers needed one special man. You know, the author and the illustrator, they give us a lot of clues about what kind of man Branch Rickey was. The author says that Branch Rickey was not afraid of change. The author also says that he thinks segregation is unfair. And he also says that he wants the best baseball players to compete. So, can you infer what kind of a man Branch Rickey is? After hearing what the author says and learning more about the time period that Branch Rickey lived in, I'd have to say that that man is pretty brave. He's willing to stand up and change the way things are. And he's willing to do it because he thinks that it's right to stand up. So I think he's a good man. He was brave, and he was willing to stand up for what was right. And he wasn't trying to change the whole world. He was changing it one piece at a time, and he decided to start with baseball, a game that he also loved. So I wonder what the special man is that he needs to change and make the world better. Branch Rickey launched a search for this special man. He was looking for a star player in the Negro Leagues who would be able to compete successfully despite threats on his life or attempts to injure him. He would have to possess the self-control not to fight back when opposing players tried to intimidate or hurt him. If this man disgraced himself on the field, Rickey knew his opponents would use it as an excuse to keep blacks out of Major League Baseball for many more years. Rickey thought Jackie Robinson might just be that man. Jackie rode the train to Brooklyn to meet Mr. Rickey. When Mr. Rickey told him, "I want a man with the courage not to fight back," Jackie Robinson replied, "If you take this gamble, I will do my best to perform." They shook hands. Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson were starting on what would be known in history as the Great Experiment. The author tells us that Branch Rickey wanted a man with the courage not to fight. Well, I wonder, how is it courageous to not fight? You hear a lot on TV that in order to be courageous, you have to be willing to fight for what you believe. I wonder what he means when he says, "I want a man with the courage to not fight back." Why is it courageous not to fight? Maybe it's harder not to fight back. Maybe it's harder to just do your best and be the best person you can be, even if everybody's telling you not to do it or you can't do it because it's never been done before. Maybe it's more courageous to just keep on being the best person you can be and not fighting. I know that it would probably be a lot harder. I wonder how Jackie Robinson is able to do that. At spring training with the Dodgers, Jackie was mobbed by blacks, young and old, as if he were a savior. He was the first black player to try out for a major league team. If he succeeded, they knew others would follow. Initially, life with the Dodgers was, for Jackie, a series of humiliations. The players on his team who came from the South, men who had been taught to avoid black people since childhood, moved to another table whenever he sat down next to them. Many opposing players were cruel to him, calling him nasty names from their dugouts. A few tried to hurt him with their spiked shoes. Pitchers aimed at his head, and he received threats on his life, both from individuals and from organizations, like the Ku Klux Klan. Can you infer why everyone was so mean to Jackie Robinson? Well, I know that back then, that a lot of places in the South, that black and white people had to have separate places, so they didn't run into each other very often. All the black people had to have one water fountain, one kind of bathroom, and then the white people would have a separate kind of water fountain and restaurant. So these adults have never really been around black people. They don't really know that they're not much different from them, except for the color of their skin. Maybe they're treating him badly because they just don't know any better. And then maybe that's why it's more courageous to not fight back. Because if Jackie Robinson keeps trying his best, then he can show them that they are just like him, except for the color of their skin. Despite all the difficulties, Jackie Robinson didn't give up. He made the Brooklyn Dodgers team. And there's a picture of the whole team that year. There's Jackie Robinson. But making the Dodgers was only the beginning. Jackie had to face abuse and hostility throughout the season, from April through September. His worst pain was inside. Often he felt very alone. On the road, he had to live by himself because only the white players were allowed in the hotels in towns where the team played. Jackie Robinson felt alone when he was on the road with a team. Can you imagine feeling alone when you're part of a team? But he couldn't sleep in the same places they were sleeping. He couldn't even eat in the same places they were eating. I think that I can make an inference that he felt alone because he spent a lot of time alone. Because the way the world worked back then, he didn't have any other choice. Even if he was trying to change it, just in the game of baseball. The whole time, Pee Wee Reese, the Dodgers shortstop, was growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, he had rarely ever seen a black person, unless it was in the back of a bus. Most of his friends and relatives hated the idea of his playing on the same field as a black man. In addition, Pee Wee Reese had more to lose than the other players when Jackie joined the team. Jackie had been a shortstop, and everyone thought that Jackie would take Pee Wee's job. Lesser men might have felt anger toward Jackie, but Pee Wee was different. He told himself, if he's good enough to take my job, he deserves it. When his Southern teammates circulated a petition to throw Jackie off the team and asked him to sign it, Pee Wee responded, I don't care if this man is black, blue, or striped. And he refused to sign. He can play, and he can help us win, he told the others, and that's what counts. Very early in the season, the Dodgers traveled west to Ohio to play the Cincinnati Reds. Cincinnati is near Pee Wee's hometown of Louisville. There's where Pee Wee is from, Louisville, Kentucky. And there's Cincinnati. It's not very far. The Reds played in a small ballpark where the fans sat close to the field. The players could almost feel the breath of the fans on the back of their necks. Many who came that day screamed terrible, hateful things at Jackie when the Dodgers were on the field. More than anything else, Pee Wee Reese believed in doing what was right. And when he heard the fans yelling at Jackie, Pee Wee decided to take a stand. With his head high, Pee Wee walked directly from his shortstop position to where Jackie was playing first base. The taunts and shouting of the fans were ringing in Pee Wee's ears. It saddened him because he knew it could have been his friends and his neighbors. Pee Wee's legs felt heavy, but he knew what he had to do. As he walked toward Jackie, wearing the gray Dodgers uniform, he looked into his teammates' bold, pained eyes. The first baseman had done nothing to provoke the hostility except that he sought to be treated as an equal. Jackie was grim with anger. Pee Wee smiled broadly as he reached Jackie, and Jackie smiled back. Stopping beside Jackie, Pee Wee put his arm around Jackie's shoulders. An audible gasp rose from the crowd when they saw what Pee Wee had done. Then there was silence. Outlined on a sea of green grass stood these two great athletes, one black, one white, both wearing the same team uniform. "I am standing by him," Pee Wee Reese said to the world. "This man is my teammate." Wow, and just like that, a small part of the world was changed to become better. Sometimes all we have to do is the right thing. And if we do the right thing in front of others, then that can inspire them to do the right thing as well. What did you think of this book, Teammates, by Peter Golenbock?